really big welcome from us today. This event is part of Freelance Futures, which is a summer program of learning and action for equitable conditions in the culture sector. And it's being delivered in partnership with the Freelance Futures Consortia. My name's Rosalie. I am a white woman with curly hair, a big mole, wearing a millennial coral t-shirt today, and have some mess in the background. Sahjan, do you want to say hi as well quickly?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sahjan, everyone. I'm wearing a kind of V-neck t-shirt, white t-shirt or cream t-shirt. I have like brown skin, and I have like this incredibly weird haircut today, which is jet black hair.
So you can introduce yourselves in the chat, as people have done, if you want to. So it's kind of nice for everybody to know who's in the room. We're super interested in hearing your star signs as well. Please be on mute unless you are actually contributing or saying something. And before we start the session, we're just going to outline quickly some access and other important information for you. So this session is being recorded, and it will be permanently, forever, until the end of times, be available to view on YouTube, on the website that the Freelance Futures Consortium has set up, or on the community platforms. And we've got somebody providing captioning today, and if you need to access these, please click on this CC closed captions button. You can also then access it as a full transcript. And I would just do a quick pause for people to activate this captioning service. Great. So we've also got BSL interpretation, which is done today by Interpreters of Color Network, and they're providing our BSL interpretation. And I think they should be pinned so you can see them at all times. Does that? Yeah, so that's Rachel, who's pinned. Quick note on our code of conduct today. So Freelance Futures is really a call for collective learning and action. And it's all about building equitable conditions for freelancers working in culture. And this will take all of us. And so we really welcome all of the insights and experiences as independent practitioners and practitioners working within cultural organizations and unions and funding bodies and in policy making. And given that this change kind of needs all of us, this is a really basic conduct for today, code of conduct. Please respect and value your collaborators in this room. Be aware of your privilege, know when to make space and when to take space, avoid overcomplicated language and explain technical terms, and kind of recognize that we're all at different stages of learning, respect a person, and challenge the idea and the behavior. This is also a very relaxed environment. We're all at home. We're like kind of getting used to the Zoom thing. So feel free to access this in any way that you want to do it. I hope you've got some snacks, something to drink. You can keep your video on if you want. You can also turn it off. Whatever you feel comfortable with today. You can do as much and as little as you want. So, and if you've got any questions, you can just signal to us in the chat function, and then we can get back to you on that as well. So this is the official welcome. The unofficial welcome is, from us as well, from Sahjan and me, to a session of really exploring a bit of magical thinking, alternative realities, and collaborative planning to figure out how we can do or be in the arts for life, if that's even possible. And we've been each other's clinical supervisors over the pandemic. I don't know if you watched Couples Therapy, but this is, so we've been meeting up every Monday. And what we're doing with you today in this workshop, which is going to go on for about an hour and a half, is that we're going to show some tools with you, which we have been developing with a secret group of artists and creative practitioners. So this is really about what you want to get out of it today, and where you are at in your own practice, in your collectives, in the relationships you're with. And it's really good if you have some pen, maybe and a paper, so maybe we can have a quick shuffle around. If you haven't got pen and paper at hand, go and try and grab this now. And I'll pass over to Sahjan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sahjan, Sagittarius, and Orchid. Me and Rosalie use Dandelion and Orchid to distinguish two different, it's kind of a thing which is coming out of psychological research right now about different states that people operate within. not only institutionally but socially. So a dandelion can grow more or less as anywhere. An orchid is more specific. It grows in specific conditions and it thrives in specific conditions. So Rosalie, once as a dandelion, and I consider myself a bit of an orchid, sometimes flirt with the dandelion status. But so yeah, it's gonna be a very like a kind of a calm environment, a kind of a low-key environment. We're not gonna have too much pressure. We're just gonna kind of create tools together, which we'll use to keep our practices alive and our ways of thinking alive over the next 12 plus months, basically. The first thing, which I thought we could all do together, is think about some of the things that we want to get and do over the next 12 months. So in order to do that, one of the things that me and Rosalie have co-developed is this structure. And I'm not going to reveal too much of the structure first. I'm actually going to ask you to do 3 things. Rosie, when I talk, do you mind copying and pasting from notes into chat what the thing is? You're gonna write down one material you want to work with this year coming. It could be anything. It can be something physical. It can be conceptual. It can be abstract. It can be like a relationship. It could be anything you want to work with over the next year. So that's one thing you have to write down. The second thing to write down are 4 aims for your practice or your freelance conditions of working. And then the third thing to do is write down 12 words that describe like your practice or the conditions of your operation within the arts. And that's kind of the first part. That's going to take us between up to about like maybe 1/4 to 10 to. And if you spend between 5 and 7 minutes just jotting those things down, don't put too much pressure on it, don't overthink it, just whatever comes intuitively immediately out of you. I think Rosie's put all that into the chat, but if you have any questions, throw it in the chat and we'll be able to answer that. It'd be great if we have music right now. I can be your music provider. I'm not Spotify. Last time I did this, Rosie, I just kept on talking, so I'm gonna stop.
Sorry, I'll go mute myself.
Sorry, can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Did you want us to share these in the chat or just to hold on to them?
Just hold on to them for now. And what I'll do is I'll introduce in about 3 minutes the structure we're going to incorporate to make them possible for you to use for next year. And yeah, just keep them for yourselves at the moment. And then we can share digitally in some shape or form after.
So, Jan, are you the timekeeper?
Sorry?
Are you timekeeping?
I am. I'm like a German train. Well, I'm a Swiss train, let's be honest. You know. 2 minutes, everyone. I feel like a really aggressive teacher. Everyone keep it lax. If you don't, also I just wanted to reiterate, if you don't finish all this stuff today, you've got the kind of the information to keep on working on these things to work forward. There is going to be quite a lot of stuff to cover, but it's all actually really interesting stuff for you to use. So no pressure on finishing everything today. It's stuff that you can keep on going back to. Cool. So yeah, like no, don't worry if you're not finished yet. You've got a lot of time after the session to keep on working on these. These are things which like will be part of ongoing practice to build into your own practices essentially. I'm just going to introduce you to what me and Rosalie like were working on during kind of like the last 24 months really. And these are just models of thinking and keeping some type of organizational structure in place for your practice so it doesn't like slip out and become like foggy essentially. And this first thing which we kind of came up with is just called a calendar essentially. And I'm going to share a screen now. Let me know if it's not working. We're just expecting technical difficulties in some shape or form. But you're going to have to, I'm going to show you something, you're going to have to draw it on a piece of paper and then I'll talk to you about how you use it. So if everyone just copies this diagram out, it's just a simple diagram of like 3 boxes at the top, 3 boxes at the bottom. It's just essentially a combination of 12 exterior boxes on the outskirts and 1 center box and 4 middle boxes. So if everyone spends about 2 minutes just quickly making a copy of that, don't worry about making it pretty or not. It's just literally about keeping it simple. Sorry. I'm so happy I have 2 screens. Like I just realized. Cool. I'm now going to just move on to the next step, and this will still be on the screen for a moment, but I'll just talk you through what this is essentially. This is a calendar. It's like an almanac for your practice. And the way it works is that you have a center box, which is it marries to the one material you want to work with. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And you have 4 boxes, which are for each of your aims. And you have 12 boxes, which are on the outside. And in some shape or form, it should, I'll show you mine, and then Rosalie will share screen and show you hers. This is essentially what mine looks like. So the material I want to work with this year is a biology, or I think biology of some form. And then around the outskirts of the 12 materials which I want to work with, and each one represents a month for me. So like science is January, technology is February. And then I have 4 aims which represent each season. So in kind of in spring, I was thinking about bringing hope into my practice, or like with my collaborators. And then I was thinking about being critical in like autumn time. So they kind of, and it's something I have in my studio, which I pin up and I go to as just a quick, like, it's almost like as an athlete, I just go, oh, these are my notes for the year, and I just remind myself, well, these are the structures I want to keep on thinking with. And then what you do is you marry your the material you work with the year to every single month. So like January was like science and biology, February was like technology and biology, and March was like material and biology, and then April was mutation and biology. And I was creating these new relationships and readings for myself. And then I kept on thinking about those with aims. So it's this very like, it seems very simple, but it's a very heterogeneous space where you can like really stretch yourself and start thinking about how language and your ideas sit next to each other. That might just be, for me, I'm an artist, so I visually make things. But for example, you could even use this for like, we could sell it to like the CEO of Google if we wanted to, and I'm pretty sure they'd buy it. But maybe if I stop sharing, Rosie, do you want to share your screen and show them your rendering? And then
I love that you changed my video games to migration. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I was like, video games migration. Dramatic shift,
I will show you mine, and this is the one I did for 2022. Does that work? Sahjan, can you see that?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, great. So I have the material I'm working with in 2022 is anger. In terms of like what I want to do, like into the kind of 4 aims is like establishing routines and kind of like a regularity to the practice that I have as well. I would really like to publish a book of some shape or form. I would like to make a net profit of 25K, and I'd like to do no more workshops. And that hasn't gone so well because I'm literally in a workshop. So yeah. And I think what I kind of really appreciate about this practice is that it's like it really brings together like the nonsensical and the sort of sensical in a way. So then when I'm kind of lost and I don't quite know where I'm at, I'm thinking about, so like January, February, March, April, May, June. So I'm thinking, okay, anger book every day. What does that actually mean? Or I'm thinking about anger 25K processy, or anger net 25K beige. Like, what does that kind of mean for me? And I think because I have to spend as an artist, or I think as a creative person, you spend so much time trying to fit what you're thinking about into these bureaucratic structures and into Grantium and into like other things. It's kind of quite nice to sort of use that, find your own language for it, that really, as Sahjan's saying, was giving you like a little map. Yeah, if people want to, can you share pictures in Zoom chats? If people want to maybe share it in their chat, or if somebody wants to hold out theirs, maybe we can quickly. There's a lot of people.
Also like Instagram it.
Or Instagram. You're not on Instagram. So yeah, people can just kind of share that their maps as well.
One of the things I find helpful just to remind people is that it's an ongoing calendar, it's an ongoing almanac, so you can keep on referencing it and changing it over the year, but like it's something to go back to and use throughout the year, as opposed to something you make today and then just like discard. It's like keep some type of rhythm and routine with it. It's like it's a really good thing with discipline, I find, especially when you're working with things which can sometimes test your like practice or test the way you work. I
must explain beige, but I think that's maybe like because I'm very I think a lot of stuff just turn out to be beige, and I think that's sort of I don't know, it's just like bland, beige and bland. What I do. Yeah.
Cool. I guess so. Yeah, like.
Is there any more questions, or like we're kind of talking to the void, aren't we? But like maybe.
Yeah, it's such an interesting relationship. Like with the 49 of you. I care for you all deeply, but it's like I am talking to like a space, Celestial energies aside for a moment, we're going to move on to a kind of a really big activity now, which thank you so much. We're going to turn kind of go up in scale with the next activity. And this is, I really doubt that, and it's really not necessary for anyone to finish the next activity. It's something you can work on for the whole, like the year, and you keep on evolving it. This is a really like big thing to do. And it's it comes out of mine and Rosalie's interests in like, I think we kind of thought about it as like a planetary garden structure, and like how like what really orbits us as freelancers, like what are the attention points in our lives, like what are the things which kind of shape our practice, what are the invisible forces which act upon us, and thinking quite carefully and about the routines and rhythms we impose on
Yeah.
ourselves. And it's really like, it's just an extraordinary thing which we did over kind of like during the pandemic's lockdown phases. So I think this time we're actually going to show before we do, because then it can there'll be a lot of questions if we didn't. So Rosie, if you show first and then I'll show, and this is, it's called it's like based upon archipelagos. So
yeah, so I will share with you the islands that this is just like the islands for this week, kind of like that. So I think Sahjan's going to talk you through how you could do it for a whole year or for your whole life, but I'm kind of, sometimes it's overwhelming to think about your whole life. So I'm doing it for a week at the moment. And so there's different kind of islands on this. One is sort of like thinking about me as a material girl and the materials I'm using, which is kind of, you know, from Adobe to low rent to relationships. Then there's something that's in the practice, like what does it mean to create like a sense of pleasure and belonging in the spaces that we organize. Then there's a bit of research, which for me at the moment is really based around not trying to fix things or solve things, and feeling more. And then there's kind of the sort of other islands that are, or kind of, they're more like rivers. They're flowing through all of the islands, and they're kind of connecting the different islands, which is all these formal and informal application processes that you do, a lot of admin time and editing. And there's another sort of river flowing through the whole thing, which is this idea of like order abolition and me being responsible for my own imagination. And I think that's something that's really come out of us meeting regularly as kind of like a Monday morning thing, where we just like have a bit of time to really be like, because we're constantly like in this like, oh, this is shit and this doesn't work, and you know, we share a lot of gossip about the art world, but then it's also kind of like, how do you really take that time to think about what you want to do, whether that's you in your personal practice or you as part of a collective, where you're kind of really imagining what could be rather than constantly just being upset about what isn't. And the kind of people that are sucking from that, and it's sort of like, there's a kind of like vacuum suction going on these kind of harbors on the island. It's sort of like different people that I'm kind of thinking about, how do I kind of navigate these people and what they want and how they're going to fund things at the moment. Big one being the Home Office right now. So big up. And yeah, so this is just my island, I think. And I'm pausing to share here.
Yeah, this is going to be something you take away and work on, and really just like embrace that as a thing. I'm going to quickly show you my island in a second, but I just wanted to talk through some thinking about what Rosie just touched upon, is the fact that it's important it's important to think about the tension sites around what it looks like to be a freelancer right now, and just incorporate those into the kind of the rhythm of making. So like, yeah, I kind of elasticate that. The one I did, I'm showing you one I did last year. I've actually done a new one, which I'm still working on, but I'll post on Instagram at some point. I don't actually have any social media. I'll just send it to Rosalie, but I'm going to share my screen in a sec. So yeah, this is the one that I've done, and it's called The Isle of Cosmos, and it's really image heavy. And mine basically is like an imaginary island, but I've got, this is more visual. I've got one which is more text heavy. So please, if you feel like you work better in images, you might want to collage one out of images instead. But mine just has seasons. I was really thinking about seasonality. I was thinking about like the things I do in my life, which actually keep like, yeah, me going. So this, and I just spoke about some of the spaces which exist on this island. And the new one I'm working on right now actually has way more structure, like Rosalie. Like, it's like thinking about the type of labor I'm working with, and who I'm working with and how I'm working with them. And you can see the contrast, but I think it's important that you can actually incorporate both types of thinking into one you want to work with. And to do this, you kind of really have to break down, like, what are the things that you're doing? Like, what's your art practice doing? Like, who's in contact with that? What are the external forces which are shaping you? What are like the rhythms? Mine here, this one's more of my own practice than it is for like the one we're doing today. But so I'll show you one which is slightly more image-based. And I'm pretty sure I've got one here, which is, do I have one? I'm pretty sure I do somewhere. Let me go back to my drive. Yeah, I think I'm going to share some. Well, I don't think people would mind if I share these, because we did. I think I'll do. You know what, Rosie, I've got yours from last year as well. But I've got one from another friend of ours. But you can see some of the questions that are coming up about like, what's the temperature like? What's the circulation of like labor like? What are the things that are going on? So what I'm going to do, that's just a visual guide, but I'm going to kind of break it down for you a bit even easier, is for you guys to just think about like some of the structures you want. Like, do you want formal structures, more naturalistic structures, and wild structures? You know, this sounds very metaphysical, and it's going to start off like that, but then I'm going to put pragmatics in place. But I'll talk you through these things, and then you'll have roughly about, I think, half an hour, if I'm correct, to work on this. And then we've also got text and copy to put into the chat, which will help you work on this. But I just want to give you like an overall process. So yeah, there's like, when we were working on this model together, one of the things we were thinking about is like the different relations to like ecosystems or ecologies that we come across, and how these things shape like our experience of them. So like I was thinking, kind of like in formal gardens, you have these really rigid structures, you know, which it's about control and like organization. And I was thinking, what would like these archipelagos of control look like? You know, what would it look like if there's a lot of if I had a lot of agency over what I did? You know, and what would it look like if I had, you know, like the wealth I would love to distribute with my network? What would it look like if I had these things? And would they be structured like this? This again sounds very metaphysical, I know, but I'm a Sagittarius, so just go with it. And
I guess what we were also talking about with the gardens is like, what happens if you don't have just one viewpoint? Because I think often when you're like working in arts, you're like forced to have this really like absolutist garden viewpoint where there's like a king and they have to like see everything in the morning, like when they wake up, and that's often like how you have to deal with like people who just have kind of one point of view. But the next garden maybe something, or the islands that you're building and the kind of worlds and the planetary gardens that you're building could be really have multiple entry points as well.
Absolutely, like that's what was really interesting, is when we're looking at the formal garden, it's got this totalization perspective, and the further on we go through is like, this is a naturalistic garden, and it's got like much more about like moving people around and seeing different textures. It's really fun. It's like a fun garden to walk through. It's a fun garden to think through. It's like a space of like control and regeneration at the same time. This is kind of what we were thinking about with this, was like, oh, what would it look like if we actually had a bit more like leeway and a bit more like agency over something, but also like we allowed things to kind of happen outside in the periphery a bit more. Like we gave space over to other things to happen. And the final thing, which was just completely like going ecological wild, where we just like go, hey, that space is up for its own grabs, now it can do what it wants. Again, this is control. This is a controlled Chelsea garden. This is not replicate. This is a replication of nature, which is what we humans do. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because, like what Rosie said, is to think about like, when you work on these island spaces, these planetary gardens, whatever you want to call them, is thinking about the relationships of time and space and prospects for yourself, and thinking about how you nurture and nourish a site in your practice or with any professional engagement you do, and like thinking about the way that those things circulate, I think are really important. As you can see with Rosie's island, it was really beautiful because you could see like how rhythms come back and things shape. So yeah, this is going to be, I hope that explains it. It's probably very, very like abstract and loose, but we've got, Rosie, do you want to copy that stuff into the chat? So we've got 4 prompts for you guys, and they're really just like simple prompts. You can really go off on a tangent and make your own like world of which is a reflection upon your practice. And I'm sure you're gonna have questions, because I feel like it's a big task. So please ask all the questions you want, just put them in the chat, and we will answer them out loud. And don't worry if you don't finish this today at all. I'm gonna stop sharing that and you'll see me again.
I guess what also helped us thinking about the island is like thinking about where the sort of ports are and like where the free ports are, where people try and avoid tax, and where you kind of like where you can't do that. So there's also something about like the different islands that you're building, how are they all interconnecting as well and around it. Is there any questions?
Yeah, please feel free to ask. Or me and Rosalie will turn this into a podcast.
An anti-vision board. Don't know if I guess you kind of like you're just thinking about like what are things in relationship to, because I think like what the kind of map does, it really tries to symbolize different parts of your practice that might also be in your life that are not strictly part of your okay, I might share my screen again so you can
sure.
What the
what things will make a practice possible? I guess like thinking about that like from logistics standpoint might really help. Like one of the things I always think about is like economy, what economy makes it possible, from social economy to economic economy, those sort of things.
Yeah. So for me, that's kind of like the sun sort of island thing that I have here. That's like what makes life possible for me is like low rent, that I do still have health, that allows me to work quite a lot, and the relationships I'm building and the kind of different materials that I'm using. So this is quite flippant to say sort of Adobe and paper, but that's basically also cutting it down to quite a basic materials that you need. So, and then for me also, when I look at that, it kind of reminds me of like what I need to prioritize. So it like I need to really focus on my health, because that's what really enables me to then make all these other connections, which don't happen if that's not there. I hope that makes sense.
We'll do this till 7:25. So if we do this for another 20 to 25 minutes, but we'll keep it at 20 right now and see how everyone does. But no pressure on finishing. Really, don't worry. Like this is something you can work on in your on the tube, on your flight, when you're on a long walk, wherever you want to do, and then you can work on it in studio. I'm so close to doing ASMR Sahjan right now. Like if everyone just keeps on working. Rosalie, how long did it take you to do that one, by the way?
I don't know. I did it today because I was thinking the one I had before wasn't really working anymore.
I need to refresh.
Hi, could I just ask a question, please, if I may?
Yes.
Right, thank you. For the island that you've just suggested I've put, because I'm an actor, I'm represented by equity. I put the issues are pay, no pay, low pay, costs of transport to venues, that sort of thing. Is that the sort of thing that you mean, this island thing?
Well, it kind of depends on what that's kind of, if that's part of what you're thinking about in your practice, you're trying to like visualize this ecosystem, then that's part of it, because I guess it takes a lot of your time, doesn't it, to sort out these things. And then kind of maybe the unionizing as an activity is a connector between different things that you're doing. So maybe the unionizing connects your practice with the sector, with change, with the kind of world that you want to see, where everybody gets paid a fair wage.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. What would you say, Sahjan?
I would agree with you. Like, I think that all these things, that because it's your island, you're actually thinking about all the things which are effective essentially in your space, and the things which are shaping your labor conditions, the worlds you want, like Rosie said, the worlds you want to see. So I think that all these things, and that we're not going to ask you to share any of this stuff. This is really like, this is your space to actually imagine and think about how you are working and what's really affecting your work. So I'd actually encourage everyone to really like stretch and think about all, like even from micro things like the administrative paperwork I have to deal with every day, all the way up to like scalable projects that you're working on.
Okay. Thank you.
I just saw Rosalie on your back the drawing with ended quotations. It's so cool.
Yeah, if I weren't here, I would be. Stretch your arms together. Show me your island again. Your island again.
The island.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
What do you mean, or could you explain a bit further, point number 3, think about areas and how they interact, and how you use and shape them?
Yeah. So like if you've got like a series of things like prompts, for example, like point number 2, like say for example, materials, yeah. If you can expand about how you were using these things, like what's the economy of the things, the actual like how they basically come into your practice and how they depart from your practice. So say, for example, like you work in, I'm going to do that typical thing, like say you're a steel person and you work in steel, you know, so how that comes into your studio, how you work with that thing, how long it stays with you, and how you move on from learning from skills. And then say something different, like collaborators. Think about how these people come into your orbit, how you work with them, how you shape interpersonal relations with them and long-term relations. And doesn't make a note of these things. It's really about expanding from those prompts outwards and not worrying too much if it's concrete. It's more about like figuring out how these things interact with each other. And then slowly you'll begin to actually make connections and figure out like, oh, so I worked with that person there, and the time and money over here, you know, these things connect, and it'll all just become like a kind of like a planetary garden, like this thing, this archipelago. Does that help explain?
Could I see Rosalie's image again, please? I think that will help me to understand about this interaction.
I also, with this map, I don't have it in this one, but I had it in the other ones I made last year, where, can you actually see my mouse moving? No, you can't, can you? Yeah?
Yeah, so, I can see you.
Yeah, so for example, I have like a bit of practice here, and this is like, in the other map, I had like a real border here. So I know that only the Arts Council or people that are in the art world can only access a certain part of my practice. So if I imagine of my practice as an island, I don't let them land. I only let them land on specific bits of that land. They're not going to come into this bit where I'm like doing stuff that I really are almost like a practice for myself and for my friends and for my family or people that I'm really close with that are I want to keep. So it also helped me to kind of really think about which bits of what I do in my life do I want to monetize, which bits do I want to organize around, which bits do I just want to kind of, you know, do I want to frame in a certain way or not? So it's, I think that's what's meant with the connections as well, so that you're kind of helping you to visualize where do you want to have a relationship with.
Yes, thank you. That makes a lot of sense now. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
And I don't know if you can show the other ones again, Sahjan, because there's like, I think maybe.
I've got your one from last year if you want me to show that.
Maybe I did it in the one from last. Yeah.
Do you want me to show that one, Rose?
Yeah, I will stop. Sorry.
Do. I'm happy to also leave that one on the screen if that helps other people. There we go. So this is Rosalie's from last year. And you can just see like the things that Rosalie was thinking about. Again, this was done quite quick. I think this was done in the session what we did last time.
So you can sort of see where the kind of like different pathways are maybe a bit more closer. So like, yeah, I was really into trying to make the shop I was doing with Sophia into paid work, which didn't work out. But like you can sort of see that.
Also, you've got a section on zones. What's that about, Rosalie? No.
Zones?
Yeah.
Do you want me to show the zones?
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, like I'm going to move from this. Everyone's got ahead of view of this. Show us the zones. Zones.
Jess, did you want to ask a question? Yeah, I can send you.
Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. I was just going to ask, that was really lovely, but could you zoom in on Rosalie's previous one, because it was quite small on the screen, but could just be me.
I can, yeah. I don't know if oh yeah, I'll do that. Cool. I'll do that. Do you mind if I share the screen quickly first, Rosalie, and then I'll
just put it in the chat as well so people can download it.
Oh, actually, it's fine. I can open it from the chat then. Thank you.
Cool.
That's the old one. Add a new one, the old one. Miss Jana's got a question: is how do I ask for payment when everyone is working for free?
Mm. Yes, yes. You know, it's interesting. That's like it's kind of there's like 3 questions in there, I think, and one of those questions is like, I guess one of the questions I always find with that is like, how do you like, I guess it tiers the questions in there. Like the first part for me would be like, you know, give me money, and it never seems to, like, in my mind I've got the energy ready to say that. And then you have got other points to that, isn't it? Like how the wealth is being distributed in that space. I mean, I would just simply like, Rosie, how would you answer? Because I'm not very polite, you know.
I'm assuming you're asking, how do you ask for payment when everyone is asking you to work for free as an artist or as a creative person? And yeah, and I guess the way is like you're asking, that the only way to do it is through asking. Clubs making money from drinking for DJs. Okay, well, that's probably the point to join a union or form a union, because I think the only power you have in that situation is collective bargaining power, because you can't really do anything on your own in that situation. So I guess we can put a few unions in the chat, which probably also cover clubs and that sort of sector, the culture sector.
Absolutely.
From my experience, that's the only way to get paid is through unionizing. I don't know if anybody else in the room has other options.
Yes, that's, yeah. Is that if anyone's got any questions still, they still want to see more things, just put a message in the chat and we'll be more than willing to show things.
Yeah. And I can maybe quickly also share this. I feel like we're distracting people from doing their islands when we're chatting, but it's people can continue this afterwards as well. So this is another kind of micro map as well of the islands, which sometimes helps, which comes from kind of a permaculture gardening system where you have different zones in permaculture. So you're trying to think about what's growing close to your house where you are spending a lot of time, what's growing a little bit further away where it might take you a minute or two to get to, or you might not get to every day, what's kind of like growing out in the field somewhere else. And then every like kind of garden has a sort of wilderness zone as well, where you're not really interfering that much, but you're kind of just keeping it to do its own thing in a way. And that kind of helps me as well if I'm trying to think about, like, I think when you're feeling sort of low in your creative practice because you're out of money or out of time, or you just feel like it's not really going anywhere, there's like the thing that is really close to me that I can do whatever life throws at me is like drawing, because I just need a pen, or sometimes I can just do it in my head. And then the next sketch I can do, which takes a bit more effort, but it's still possible. I can learn something, I can teach something, I can grow something, or things don't grow and then I compost them. And the last step, which takes the most effort and kind of is something I can organize, and I can also let go of certain things. So the kind of zoning, just this map really helps me to look at it when I'm feeling that I haven't got a lot of agency or there's nothing I can do. So it's kind of nice to have that prepared before you're in that sort of hole, because when you're in it, it's very hard to think about stuff you can actually do. And yeah, so that's like another little sub-island sub-island exercise of zoning.
It's weird, Rosie, actually, like I was thinking, you know, when you did your first island, you had a subsection which had zones in it last year, and then this has grown into a whole different like thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question? Oh, sorry.
No, sure, go ahead.
I put my video on quickly. Hi. I just want to ask, do you guys do other stuff outside of your practice to sort of keep you going financially? I'm asking because I've just sort of left kind of full-time work and I've gone back into freelancing, and I'm having to do other things, but not yet focusing on my practice. And my practice is sort of around food, or that's the direction I'd like to go in. So I'm just wondering, do you do other things to earn money to do your practice, or are you kind of self-sustaining for your practice?
Do you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Rosalie. I'll answer.
I have never been able to self-sustain just through art practice. Like that's not something, but I at the moment I have 1 day a week that I just have for my art practice, and then I have 2 days a week that I work in kind of like with my culture in a collective, so that's kind of partly paid and partly like also free. And then I do teaching for a day a week, and then I have 1 day a week where I just do like a lot like different other things, just like subsidize it. And I think that's worked really well for me. Like in a way, I don't think I would want to be an artist, like an artist sitting in the studio doing my own thing 7 days a week. I think I'd go a bit nuts, maybe. So it's sort of like, but it's, everybody has different aspirations. So I don't want that's like so. But I think, yeah, I think it's totally normal to have different things going on in your life that sustain you at different points of your life as well. And doesn't mean that you're less professional or less of an artist or less of a very creative person. I think it's just a reality for me.
Thank you.
What do you, yeah.
Yeah, I do a ton of other stuff. Like it's just not I've never, I guess, been in the position where or I guess I never, like Rosalie, I never particularly want to be in that position where it's like and that's not the reason I'm saying that's not desirable. It's not neither non-desirable or desirable state to be in, because I have these multiple revenue streams which support parts of my practice, but that thing will never, I think, in any shape or form, considering how much pay for exhibition making or things like, because I'm like a visual artist, so I make things. There's never this is just, I don't think it's like, I've never seen, I rarely meet people who actually have a sustainable model like that, which keeps them going, unless they have like a commercial output on one side. And this is just a visual arts, coming from a visual arts background, but there's also probably mirroring states in other creative fields. But yeah, I have to have different things. I have to do workshops, family engagement, sometimes long research and symposium things, and sometimes just like residencies, and then they themselves have like forms of engagement outside of it. But rarely I've ever been in a state where the money from like the practice itself is generating long-term money. Yeah, I like Rosalie, I would never like personally also, and this is now again defending in defense of the system. System is very like dangerously expropriative, but I'd never particularly want to be in a situation where I'm doing that 7 days a week personally, because it would drive me nuts, like Rosalie. It'd be like flying for 24 hours. I'd be like, oh my God. I have a theory that no one should self-express themselves that much, you know?
Thank you.
Oh, everyone should just start talking like this. You all seem so lit. Oh, it's such like, it's so formal. It's like we're at like a dinner table, like, and we'll do the next activity. I'm like, come on, people, let's have a rave. You know? And it goes silent, and I'll stop.
I go silent again. Yeah.
That was a really good question though, Jess. Like, it's really good, because when we do these calendar things, they're not like, we never design them as self-help models. We actually design them as the antithesis to that. We're like, why are we constantly finding ourselves in positions of like excess precarity or excess expropriation? And one of the things that me and Rosalie do is we actually talk each other through these models we built to figure out like how to create like new possible worlds, essentially. We're very much, I think, just because of the dialogues me and Rosalie have, we're very much about people who want to build the democratic institution first and then confront something else, as opposed to trying to retrofit something into a pre-existing model of an institution or something, whatever it is. And we have a lot of fun doing it. Rosie's one of my close friends. We go way back to Germany.
Can I ask one more question, if that's okay? Sure. How did you guys come up with the ideas for these sort of models? Is it in your kind of background or in your practices, I guess?
Yeah, really good question. We did something secret over the pandemic. It was a very secret activity with a few artists. There's about seven of us, I think. And we came together and we were really like, I was like gonna leave. I've had a very erratic career, by the way. Throw back to me, but it's gone like this, and I'm very proud of that because I've learned from multiple industries. So I used to work in botanic horticulture before I became an artist, and before I did a fine art degree and everything, but I didn't like my experience. I had a really bad experience at university. So I've had this happen a lot to me, where I've gone through multiple different things, and I came back, and when we were in this private secret group together, which we didn't share with anyone, we were just having these conversations, which were very long, very generous, very productive conversations about why we're feeling so partly disillusioned, but partly critical of like why kind of the labor and just what we were doing to ourselves. And then we started thinking about what people do to imagine themselves out of things, you know, and the history of this from like abolitionist thinking all the way up to like productive, you know, like organization together. And these are just like small tools, and it's weird, like that you might just think, oh, it's happened today, I'm never going to go back to it, but a big change will happen at some point if you want to use them, and you can then converse with other people who are using them, and then you figure out things together. But we came with it together because we were in a secret group together, like a spy network, and we were really interested in like imagination and what happened to it, considering that we're all meant to be really creative, and every time I go places, people take my creativity away. Rosie, do you want to, because you've had a similar, yeah, I don't speak on behalf.
Yeah, I think similar experience, just about like because so much of like being an artist, I think, is like you do the work and then you have to talk about doing the work. And I think then that at some point I felt like I was just talking about it, but I wasn't actually doing it anymore. And then like being in relationship with other people in your own creative network, I think, is the thing that then keeps you going. And yeah, I just keeping an eye on the chat as well. Great, pay rates was great. There's also, I'm putting I'm putting two things in the chat right now. One is from Rabbit's Row Press, from our friends at Rabbit's Row Press, and Sophia and oh, I forgot her name. Oh, this is terrible. Sophia and Sarah have made this book that's called What Art Stops, and that's maybe a good introduction for people as well. And then there's another union that I'm going to put in the chat, which is UPW. Designers and Cultures.
Because I think the scales and the questions won't to answer everything in this thing, but if people who are in the group right now, the 40 of us, you can also talk in chat. I might answer some of the questions in chat as well, because we're going to move on to the next activity in a minute. But
maybe that's a really good. I think the question just about like, when do you choose what to say yes to or what to say no to? Maybe that's a good, like, we can, I don't know if people want to share their islands as well a little bit. Junlin, do you want to share your island?
Harsh, Rosalie, harsh.
Wow. Oh, wow. I can't actually look at it and fit it into the camera. So I'm actually from an archipelago. So I was really interested actually why you chose an archipelago, which is the connection of small islands to larger land masses. Because I think there's something about the power of large countries or states, which is why, you know, the Ukraine-Russia thing, or like the Eastern European countries feel so beholden to really large, powerful entities. But I mean, another conversation. So yeah, because I was just trying to get my head around, how do I feel? What is archipelago culture? It's more about the ocean and the sea and the connections. And it's something I'd really like to look into. So yeah, I ended up like thinking a lot about community and kinship, healthy relationships, gathering spaces for analysis, organizing for joy, pleasure, imagination. And then like this big landmass kind of appeared in the top corner about ancestral wisdom, roots as in anchor roots, and roots as in sea roots. And then another kind of big chunk appeared as well about money, resources, home, the ability to travel, cross borders, health, of course. And it was kind of, then I made this really protective kind of space here where there was like a stable organization that was fronted, and then people could only enter this way, and this was kind of like hidden or like protected, so you can't access all of those beautiful community roots, wisdom, more personal stuff, because there's like a front, like there's a front protecting me, and it's my access or my port. So I really like that analogy of who do you want to land and to how far, and how how are you protecting your resources and your communities? I don't know. That's where I got up to.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
That's great.
Also, I love the mustard. Is that mustard yellow on the back? It's so chic, you know. Yeah, that was beautiful. I think, yeah, like if people want to like share, they can share once you've done it, you can share them online. And there is an Instagram handle, I believe. And then it would be great to see them if you want to, or you can keep them to yourself. It's totally up to you, because this is something which you might want to use interpersonally for your just indirect conversation with what you do. But we are going to move on to the next activity because we have to wrap up by 8, and I'm running like a Swiss train. So the next activity is really hyper magical. It's like really super fun. It's kind of like allowing fantasy back into your life a bit, and allowing speculation. And this is totally where you're allowed to go off like and do what you want really with what you how you're thinking, how you're imagining. And it's to do with something that me and Rosalie use a lot without intentionally using it in a metaphysical necessary way, which is tarot. We kind of use it to organize ideas and projects. But what I'm going to do is me and Rosalie are going to show you tarot cards. One Rosalie designed this morning. Mine, again, is a little more visual. But, Rosie's done a beautiful one. So Rosie, if you want to start, and then we'll show you 2 examples, and then we'll move on to actually talking about how you do it.
Okay. Yeah, this really relates to the question that's in the chat as well, of like, how do you decide what you want to do and how do you say no? And this has been a life question for me. Like I even got my friend Sophie to tattoo me like this arm actually, tattoo me like no onto my arm, so I would kind of like remember that I want to say no to things, and it really didn't work. And I've still said yes to too many things. So it's I'm now trying this, I think, with kind of like just really, before something comes in, just trusting that I can make a decision when I listen to myself and to my body of like, does this invitation excite me? Like not even in a kind of like, will this lead to work in 5 years time, or like none of this kind of speculative thinking, but just being like, what do I actually feel when I read that? What do I feel when I see that? And then I just go for a walk and I look at plants, I look at things, and I try and have a dialogue with them. Like that sounds a bit hippie, but I'm like trying to figure out something with them, which is like, what is actually going to take me forward? And the tarot card I have for this year is like, is one that's called Strength, which is one of the major cards, and it's also sometimes called Lust or Fortitude, and it's all around the dandelion. And I think you remember Sahjan saying at the beginning that I'm the dandelion, he's the orchid, and there's like something about this like the dandelion has like really amazing functions, I think, because it's almost like a weed, and especially in London you can see it growing through like the biggest concrete and asphalt as well, so it's super strong, and it has this really, really long tap root, which means that it can resource itself, like go really, really deep into the ground to get all this water. And so I'm thinking about how this plant can kind of root super deep, how it can also fly, how it can give me like strength to be angry and like do things that I don't like, kind of like just kind of tap into that life force in a way as well. And so this is a card that I have printed off for situations when I'm sort of like, when I don't feel my own strength. And that's when I think then you get like pushed into all kinds of directions, because if you don't know what you really want, then it's much easier for other people to kind of like influence you and kind of like push you into directions that you might not feel comfortable with afterwards. So this is the tarot card for today.
Cool. That was a really beautiful description of it. I'm going to quickly share mine, which is I did digitally, and it's just an image, but I'll talk you through what it is, and I'll talk you about why I'm using it this year. And it is it's incense. My card this year is like an incense card, and it's trapped in a box, unfortunately, so the smell never leaves. And I've been thinking about like this, like using the clouds and using space to like conjure new worlds, and feeling kind of really trapped sometimes by the labor and the work I'm doing. And I've just been thinking about what like how like some of the things I wrote down about incense were like, it's this thing in India, we use it a lot to like signal space. So There are so many times that we mask smells with incense. So we invite people through the house through incense. So it's something which I always go back to, like this idea of like a transient thing, which I want to really activate in myself, like this thing which invites and welcomes to a space. So for me, this next year is really about like, like the essential welcome. So I've got it. Essential spelled with like a scent. Oh my God, iconic. And trademark that, no one take that. But like it's this thing which I really wanted to like do is this people pick up on it, people are drawn to it. You can, if your neighbors are doing it, you really think about it. There's a really incredible experience I had with it. I was burning it once in my apartment, and then my neighbor 2 floors up came down going, what is that? I must have it. And we create like this weird dialogue when we used to give each other incense. So it's like this weird community thing. And that's my card, but we're gonna, I'm gonna stop sharing now and talk you through how you do it basically. That was just a visual one. I'm very like, yeah. But Rosie, do you want to copy the tarot card thing into the chat and I'll just quickly talk about it. So you got, if you think about like what, fantastically again, think about like what, like you think, like tarot is all about like a speculative thinking basically, but it's also about like really grounding in something. So think about like, yeah, for the future, what card for the future, what qualities do you want the card to have? Like, do you want it to be a hopeful card? And I always like keep mine in my near my business card. And like, if anyone really like gets to me, I'm like, here it is. Here's my tarot card. Leave me alone. It's my fortress. Think about the qualities you want to have. Think about the iconography the card will have. So if you're doing something like hope, like what brings you hope? Like what really does it? It's kind of like, yeah, that's what it really is. It's a very simple exercise, but it's just kind of a way to wrap this whole thing up and just make you imagine something which you use daily. I've pinned all these things up, by the way. We don't just do these workshops and go, yay. I actually have these pinned up in my studio, so I just remind myself why these things exist, you know, like why I'm designing them and working with them. And Rosie's a really good example of one because it can show you like how the roots affect, you know, her whole ecosystem of the card. But yeah, and if you have any questions again, please feel free to put them in the chat, but also feel free to like expand upon the card, and no pressure on finishing it today either. Please take this away and work on it. We are going to do this until I think about 7:50, and then we're going to just wind down and say thank yous to everyone and depart from the Zoom ether.
What's your orchids?
Sorry?
How's your orchids?
I can show you. This is the moment I bring my miniature ones out. My real orchids you're talking about. Like, oh, look, it's flowering again. Mm. I've got like, these are like miniature ones. I rescued them because they were dying. This is what I do. I go into like I go places and pick these up. And it had this, it's incredible because I actually had this like weird one flowering from so these are monopodial orchids. But it had this flowering, which I rarely see in this Phalaenopsis species. But I will take it up and be like, wee. My favorite one though, I'm gonna do that thing which is like super millennial, just show off my plants, which is this one. It's so cute.
That is very cute.
How are your dandelions, Rosalie?
I only got seeds.
Oh, if anybody wants like orchid advice, I used to work at Q, and my supervisor was an orchid specialist, and yeah, I'll give you all the advice. You have to use rainwater. That's the biggest tip. You know, this is going to turn into a horticulture seminar very quickly.
Somebody's asking, how do you rescue them? I have lots that are not dead but don't flower.
Yeah. So if you want them to flower, there's this like drip feed you can get from like I think you can get them online or in like supermarkets, which are like, you just put them in, they're like pink, and they're called orchid feed, biofeed or something like that. And I always water with rainwater. That's the biggest thing. And I water them, let them dry out, then water them again. Like that's the way I do it. Yay, I really was excited for this part.
Is that how do you pronounce it? Well, the tarot card could be like something that is a dilemma, or it could also be something that's just like, for me, it's like an image that I look at that reminds me of certain moments or strengths. So that's deeply personal to you, what you want to put in your card. I mean, there's sort of like, there's the kind of classical tarot illustrations, but this could really be like, yeah, anything that gives your practice or your life a meaning at this point, I think, is on the tarot cards.
Yeah. What would be cool, actually, I know not everyone, the tarot is like personal to you, but I was having a mind moment where I was just like, oh, if we all just printed ours out, we could make a tarot deck and sell it like on an Etsy, you know? We're not going to do that, but just putting that out there. Put it in the chat if you're interested, you know? Rosie, if you take over a few minutes, I just need to go and check something outside. I'll be back in a second. It's so nice. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm just talking to abstraction. I was actually a reference to something in the chat, just like me randomly saying things. Everyone, we have like a minute left with this activity, and no pressure about like finishing now or like having everything completed, because you can work on it. It's actually good if you don't finish it, because that means you get to work on it in your time, so it gives you some structure. But yeah,
I guess what I really recommend is like finding a partner in this process, like finding somebody who's going to check up on you and your tarot cards and your islands and your like your calendars as well, to get a bit of accountability into our process. Didn't do any stretches. I had all these stretches.
we can do like end of Zoom stretches. You know, watch like the room just disappear. You know, it's like suddenly 2 people left, me and you, Rosalie. Cool. Yeah, like we've kind of come to the end of this like spectral session. Ooh. I really think like what Rosie just said is true. Like it'd be good if you find something. Also, if you can distribute this thinking with other people, is a really good thing to do. So you can actually share this with other people. We really want these tools to like go outside of us. We're not really interested in trademarking them. So like feel free to like introduce other people into these concepts. So you actually find other people who want to work with this. So yeah, like again, like these 3 things we've shared with you, they're kind of part of a cycle of thinking, which you can you can bring from a very personal level. So like the way you work with something or someone, to actually like an institutional practice, like how you work with others and how you actually want to shape a team or shape others around you. So it's actually a tool which, yeah, it would be good for Google. So we'll think about that in a few years' time. But it's like it's like these 3 things are really like the starting points for us as well. Yeah, like if there's anybody who's got questions at this whilst we finish up, just let us know. We'll give you a few minutes to work on this, and then we'll just close up at 5 to 8.
Yeah, we like to, if people want to share cards, that's really nice as well, but there's no pressure to.
I mean, the ones so far have been amazing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the chat as well. It's really nice to hear.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like a very joyous environment, you know. Yeah, like also like I think just going off what Rosie said, like I've because Rosie's kind of my accountability buddy. I always go back to Rosie to check up on these things. I think yeah, I think, but what Rosie stressed is really true, just to keep these things alive, because they kind of like help you structure stuff, I guess, and I think it's really important. Oh, cool.
There's also gigs as well, like when you're just doing gigs and you're like, because institutions probably don't invite you back, or from my experience as an artist, you get invited once, and so that's not enough to sustain you over a whole lifetime of practice. So the people that are actually like sustaining are the kind of like other people that are around you, I think, often in a way. It's quite good. Cool. Does anybody else want to share anything, or has any questions, or would like to?
Would love to answer now, because it's the right time as we wind down. But if not, then we'll slowly start fading into the ether. But yeah, I'm actually surprised how few questions we had. I was like, this sounds really abstract.
Oh, nice. That sounds good. Yeah. We're not also like, yeah, you adapt and modify and change all of this in a way that works for you. We're not gonna check on you whether you've done something right or wrong.
Oh, cool. Cool. Rosie, should we wind down? I feel like we're like super Swiss, like early. Okay. Thank you.
So on time.
We're like just waiting at the train station. We're like, hey everyone, we're early.
It's early. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I guess
maybe something just kind of for people to, take this with them and adapt it, and working around it. And I guess we'll stay on as well. There's a really nice thing I like to do when I've been on a computer for too long, which maybe we can do as a final goodbye stretch, which is really easy. You just have to take your hand, whichever one you want to start with, and you press your head against your hand. So I'm pressing like this way with my head, and with my hand I'm pressing this way. So you're kind of like giving yourself a bit of resistance, and then you're doing it with the other hand. So pressing my hand this way, pressing the head that way. And then I do it with both hands at the back of my head. So I'm pressing my arms forward and my head behind, pressing my arms forward, my head back. And then I do the same the other direction. And that really puts my shoulders back into balance. Then I did that for you. And yeah.
Cool.
Cool. We might quickly do this thing where we leave the room and then we come back in. And then if there's any more little chats, you can ask us anything. Can we do that? Do you want to go down into the basement, Sahjan?
I will. Let me just move my chair. I've done this before. I'm gonna do it again. See you guys.
Sorry, I find it so. Okay. So we'll hopefully. And thank you for being with us. I know it can be really stressful to think about your life and your practice and where it's all going, but we hope we gave you a bit of a few things to do. So Jan is now gone. He will never return.
I'm back. I've always wanted to do that. I'm iconic. Everyone knows that. No. My chair's back as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.